feel like that clap could have been more robust. I mean, y'all did that real light clap. Well, yeah, we're happy to be here for sure. Chas, me and you go way back, and it's interesting. Sometimes we get on stages and think we're just going to talk, but I really just wanted to welcome people into a friendly conversation between old friends. We go back
Yes, we
in
do.
the fitness days,
Yes, sir.
and yeah, I really just want to share. I want to hear about what's going on with you. Definitely want to share about Made Athlete, but I'm excited for y'all to just kind of sit in on a conversation between two friends. So
Yes. Yes, we do go back to F45 days. Good times, good
at
times. Lots of good
45.
times. Um, but yeah, guys, I'm Chastity Morales. I want to thank everybody for being here today. This was so cool, and especially the fact that I get to chat with you. I feel like we always have really good flowing, comfortable, open
Yeah,
conversations.
for sure.
We're just in a different era and a different conversation right now. So it's
Completely
kind of cool.
different
You
era.
guys really get to experience this full on. Um, but I'm Chastity Morales. I come from the franchise world. So I had a few franchise fitness gyms that I helped expand throughout the city, and took a couple years off to get a little more towards the digital side of things, more online training, things like that. And now I'm getting myself back into the fitness space and franchise space with a little bit of a different perspective and a bit of a different role and lots more knowledge than when I first started, first coming out of sports. So now I think it's just a different space that I'm in, going into a new venture. I'm very excited. We'll be expanding forward studios throughout San Antonio. We're actually going to be one of the first founding cities in the U.S. For this new concept that's coming out of Australia, which is amazing. Definitely very team inspired, very athlete inspired. So I know you would love it. But it's really cool because it's a franchise coming out of Australia. So it's something that the U.S. industry hasn't necessarily seen yet. And I do love the fact that it does have its own story, which you guys will see later during the video, which I 100% resonate with the ownership and how they're developing everything. But I think it's this new, like fun, very stylish, very bougie, as I like to call it, a new concept, which I don't think people have been able to grasp that much in fitness in the boutique space. Even though you think boutique, you think high end, you think something a little more luxurious. But boutique fitness typically is a bit more has a bit more of a commercial standing to it, or sound to it, excuse me. So I think this has finally caught and grasped that true meaning of like boutique fitness, and the training style is very familiar to myself. Like I do love it. So I just feel like the product is going to do exceptionally well in San Antonio. It's going to be a beautiful new product, a nice new space that people can go to and feel like they're getting a full experience.
Well, we're friends, so one of the first things I learned about you was that you former athlete, then you went into the LFL. Talk about that, and then the exit into entrepreneurship.
The LFL was an animal, I will be honest with you. So if you guys are not familiar, it was an MTV sport, let's just put it that way. Female football, and you laugh, I know you know what it is.
Not the female football.
I know you know what it is.
lingerie.
I always laugh when people are like, oh, what is it? But when I say it, the lingerie football league, people are like, oh, yeah, you played that, it's looked intense. It was very intense. It was a lot of angry, powerful women in one place. But it was a lot of fun, and it definitely did help me when it came down to going into the business world, because I didn't really play collegiate sports. I went from high school, went to dental school, and then missed that atmosphere, and then went into the LFL. And I played that for about 6 years, and this is when social media and things started to kind of get a little more popular, and people started to utilize it a little bit more for their own personal branding. So that transitional point of taking what I've done with the LFL, getting that recognition as an athlete, and then moving into the fitness space was just a very kind of like, it just felt like the right transition for me to make, because I had a lot of passion for sports and training and things like that. So it's passion behind the actual business aspect really helped me and motivated me to continue, which helped me scale, obviously. But no, the LFL definitely was a lot. It was a lot more, I think, marketing than it actually was playing sports. But the game itself was no joke. You know, you did all the things. You had a full season. Went full kit training. Very aggressive in the training aspect. You needed discipline to be able to look good, but also perform well, because you were going to be watched by millions of people, televised, things like that. So that on its own it was a very new territory for me, but it definitely did help me segue into kind of more so what I'm doing now. And what about you? Made Athlete, hello.
I mean,
I love that so
hello.
much. Love the name.
Yeah, so I mean that journey too. Obviously, what brought us together was fitness training. But prior to that, high school athlete, went to college at Texas A&M, had a lot of success there, and took that into kind of the professional ranks. So if anybody knows about track and field, it is not a very rich sport, meaning that this is not like the NBA or the NFL where there's just tons of money going into contracts or these big signing bonuses. It doesn't have the visibility. So with no visibility, there's not a lot of money. So you have a lot of people that do Olympic sports that are really passionate and have a drive to be an Olympian. But often you need to be entrepreneurial. You got to be a little bit savage to make it work. And so I made a decision a couple years out of college to move to Phoenix and start training with a professional group called Altus. And there, I went out there. I had worked in sales, so I was a sales executive for 2 years. Really secured the bag. Paid for 6 months in Phoenix to like really pursue the dream. And I said, in 6 months, I'm about to figure it out. So I got out there. It's what you would typically call like a semi-professional because there wasn't really a contract behind me. But I was training with some of the best athletes, like the Olympic gold medalist in the 2012 Olympics, bronze medalist in the World Championships, and I was a long jumper. So had a really great team, good coaches, good therapists, and what happened is things started happening. Started competing well, spending a lot of time in the craft. It really does create opportunity. And I just, even with entrepreneurship, when we think about like the journey, it really does take a community. No one is just out there on an island creating something. It really does take the right conversation, the right opportunity, the right network. I really believe often it can be divine when you walk into certain rooms, or someone might raise their hand in a room that you're not in. And that's exactly what happened. I had a buddy who was signed with Lululemon, and Lululemon at the time, I mean, the men's brand had been maybe 3 years, 2 years old. And so it wasn't really known. I was like, okay, the yoga pant people, like the black pants. I was like, they do men's stuff? And he was like, yeah. And he was talking about the athlete's kind of director for Lululemon. And you know, it wasn't really a thought. It was like, I'm just gonna stay on the grind. What I'm looking for is a contract with like a Nike or Adidas. I need to be at this world ranking to even get the visibility. I need to be competing at these meets to do it. And he just said, hey, Melvin, come to this yoga event. Matt, the guy who was leading kind of the athletes program, will be there. We're just going to kind of kick it. And so that was my first time on a yoga mat too. And I was like, bet it's not going to be any weird stuff, right? We're not going to be, praying to another god. Like I don't play. But I went, and I literally remember. It's interesting. I didn't even think I was going to share this, but I remember laying on my back. I think it's called savasana, like where you're just kind of laying
Don't
out.
ask me.
Am I
I
right?
need it, but I
Anybody
don't
in
do
the
it.
nobody's a
I need it, but I
yogi
don't
out
do
here.
it.
That felt right. There it is. So I was laying on my back, and it was the first time in many years that I felt present with my heartbeat. Like literally, I could hear my heartbeat, and it brought me to tears. And I was like, okay, not the yoga moving me. And I said a simple prayer and got up, and I just was very thankful. It was a lot of gratitude to be in the room, and it presented something different to me. So from there, I linked up with Matt, the guy who was running it at the time, and within maybe 6 months, I was on a contract with him, and the contract was so communal, meaning like the language was like, hey, we're here to support you. What do you need to be the athlete that you're called to be? And I really believe that was the first seed planted to even have something like Made Athlete come to my mind. It was someone making a way for me so that I could hopefully make a way for someone else. And so, was with Lululemon, had a very interesting contract with them where it was kind of supplemented with doing some of the brand work in front of the camera, forward facing. And it was, I would say those 4 years with them honestly changed my life. And not so much because it's Lululemon. I don't even think it's because of the brand. I think it's much different than it was when I was a little bit younger. But it really did show me what it looks like to support someone. And support's not just dollars and cents. It's putting you in rooms that you wouldn't be in. It's giving you a different perspective that you might not get. And I'm a firm believer that you get in the room, you don't always need to seat at the table. Just be in the room. So as I was in the room, it honestly really was cultivating entrepreneurship because already as an athlete you have to be an entrepreneur to be successful, but then you're seeing a business, a global business, $1 billion business operating but also supporting me, and it's like, wait a minute, this is possible.
Yeah.
Like, y'all making money and supporting me and doing it in a way that makes me feel very known, seen, and loved. So that really was a catalyst for me, even with Made Athlete. And with Made Athlete, beyond wins and losses really does resonate for me, because I think athletics, and you could probably attest to this, is such a great teacher of life. You want to talk about learning wins, losses, ebbs, flows, peaks, valleys, mental fortitude, even dealing with depressive thoughts. What does resilience look like? What does my team look like? Injuries. I mean, everything actually helps you to navigate life. And I really do believe my desire, specifically with Made Athlete, is to redefine what it means to be an athlete. And when we look at athletics, we see so much of it being, how did you spend your first million? What jewelry do you have on? Now, every single, like walking just to the locker room has become like a catwalk. It's like it's being leveraged in so many ways that actually makes our young kids and even older kids look at it and be like, man, that's what it means to be an athlete, where I've experienced not being in that side of sport being an escape, sport being such a teacher of life. And I think that what media projects is not that. And there's good to that, a little bit of swag, securing bags never hurt.
Right.
But what is sport? I truly believe that it changes your life. So
I love that, because I was listening to something not too long ago on a podcast, and it was a professional athlete who was talking about having an identity crisis going into entrepreneurship, because you do when your life is so consumed with sport, and that's who you are, for your talent, for the way that you look, the way that you perform. um, when you get out of that, I mean, granted, the transitional time between being an athlete and being an entrepreneur is there's a lot of similarities, right? Like you said, the wins, losses, the resilience building, the learning discipline, the consistency to get better, the development, like a lot of those things are practiced. It's not just something you initially wake up with. But being comfortable in those uncomfortable spaces as an athlete definitely kind of helps you in that transitional period, or even in the first little while of you being in your professional career as an entrepreneur, right? Because the first years are the hardest, especially if you're building something new, or even in a franchise. It's hard because you don't know what it feels like to win or lose. You are just there trying your absolute best to figure things out, and it's a scary place to be without knowing what the end game is going to be, especially when you've given everything to it. But I do think that development of being an athlete, like the same thing happens. You don't know if you're going to get hurt. You don't know if you're going to be the best on the field. You don't know what's going to happen the next play. You're just doing what you're really good at, and hoping that everything that you've taught yourself is going to put you in a good place to win. So that's kind of like what I feel entrepreneurship is a lot like. And I do love the fact that what you're doing is helping and to guide those like young athletes and professional athletes, because I think for the longest time there's been a lot of they haven't had that opportunity to get the help that they need. So when you do see a lot of things on social media where it's just like the perception of what an athlete is supposed to be, they don't know what the back end of that initially looks like. It's just like, this is what it has to be. I went to an event not too long ago. It's called PAC. Do you know what that is? Pro Athletes Community. It was a network event in Austin, and I was more so invited because I played sports, but they wanted to put these athletes just in a room, like you said, in a room with people that, like professionals, entrepreneurs, people in real estate, things like that, just to have a simple conversation, something that could potentially help them segue into a new idea, or a new opportunity for them as athletes post-career, or even post-university career, because I think right now lots of those kids are making lots of money at a very young age, but they don't necessarily have the guidance or the right community to be a part of that's showing them what they could utilize with all these earnings that they're making. And could potentially be overwhelming, but at the same time, you're a kid. You get some money. You don't know what you're supposed to do. You don't have those initial responsibilities of what you need to do, or how you could make these investments, or other things that you can be utilizing your money for outside of looking really cool, you know? So,
Yeah, and it's interesting, a couple thoughts that I had when you were speaking specifically about entrepreneurship and athletics. I think one of the greatest crossovers, and you'll hear a lot of CEOs and people that run businesses, they say, I like to hire athletes. And it's not because they've done the greatest things, but they know how to lose. Like, you're not winning all the time. Like, often you're losing and you're working harder to try to win. And those moments are fleeting and they're small. So there's a level of drive that goes beyond wins and losses. And so it's like there's something very beautiful about athletics and its poetry. I actually went to a PAC event just 2 weeks ago.
oh, nice.
And one of the guys leading on the athlete performance side had invited me. And one of the speakers had said, all of us are artists. So these are all NFL players. Everyone in here is artists. We need more scientists. He was like, y'all have to be artists and scientists. Be very tactical in the way that you handle entrepreneurship or opportunity because it's fleeting as well.
Yep.
And so you don't get to just jump into entrepreneurship and all of a sudden you're winning. I mean, I think anyone can attest to that. But again, athletics, if we could redefine it to more of what is it teaching you for life, knowing that this window of athletics is small. I mean, it's fleeting, but like your life is so much bigger. That's why you see a lot of mental health issues in athletics. You see a lot of people with identity crises. It's because someone didn't beam a light that, whoa, you're an artist. And your artistry transcends this playing field. And so even with Made Athlete, a little bit of a background on that is it's really focused on NCAA, so NIL, name, image, and likeness. You might not have heard of it, but athletes now, as of 2021, are able to make money as what's called amateurs. So they can secure a bag off of their name, image, and likeness. And I even think that in itself, the way that it is colored as name, image, and likeness already creates or plants a seed in a kid's head. Okay, I need to go to IG, TikTok. How do I grow? How many times do I need to be posting? What do I need to look like? How can I flex on this? How can I show this? Everything about it is so surface level. And when you look at how that was opened up, the NIL process, NCAA got sued back in 2009, class action suit. They're like, bet, let's rip this Band-Aid off. Y'all can do what y'all want because they didn't want to have to deal with the repercussions of it. So then fast forward to 2021, it opens up and it's making a lot of noise, right? It's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it, but it's like the wild, wild west. You could tell that there wasn't really development behind it. And when I remember it happening because I was a collegiate athlete, I was like, man, I wish I could have secured a few $1,000 bills, you know? But it made me very intrigued. How is this going to be handled? What is this going to mean? And then how are athletes actually going to adapt to this opportunity of making money? And all that I have seen, obviously I competed. I came back to San Antonio 2018. I was a volunteer coach for a university here in San Antonio. And just the conversations with the athletes then as it was kind of prepping, and then even post them having opportunities to make money. There's not many athletes, when I'm talking about not the 1%, the Archie Mannings, the people that are securing millions of dollars, which then gets projected, right? So then you have the 99 that will never reach that are now in many ways coveting what the top 1% are. So then they lose what their gift is, what their brilliance is, how they could use this opportunity to actually grow in entrepreneurship, in themselves, in connection and network, where that's what money gives you. It gives you resources and opportunity. It's not about flexing. It's not about being seen. And I was getting a little irritated by it. I'm not even in this, but I know that my greatest moments and my worst moments as an athlete were in the NCAA, was while I was at Texas A&M. So I had a lot of success, but as you start to climb that mountain, the air gets thin. And then what do? You put that mask on. It's like, oh, I'm good, I'm equipped, I can do it. But secretly, little boy was screaming. I had no clue how to be at that level. I remember the first time I broke top 3 in the NCAA in long jump, and I was just like, how am I going to stay here? So imagine me just having these kind of performance crisis issues, but then being able to have money attached to what I'm doing. So now I'm more visible. I'm forward facing as if I'm strong, big. What do the young people say now? I'm getting older. It's like alpha. Is that what it is? I'm a millennial, but the kids out here these days got all these new sayings. But anyways,
I just exposed my age. I was like, what did you just say to me?
Sure, alpha. Given these real machismo, I'm there, okay. But I wasn't, and so I always reference that because once I went professional and got with a professional group, there was a lot more focus on mental performance, on KPIs or key performance indicators of my mind. Like, how was I prepping for meets? How was I debriefing? What was my breath work looking like? What was my spiritual walk, and how did I let that influence what I was doing on the track? It just completely opened up this space, and I was like, man, I didn't have none of this, and I was really doing it. There's so much money behind institutions, yet I wasn't really equipped for the moment. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, this is opened up. I start seeing the narrative among athletes. I start seeing what's being projected, and I see, again, this ain't it. And if I can even make a small dent in regards to, not only, I want the athletes to leverage their opportunities. That's a big deal, right? Name, image, and likeness. If you can make money, make money. But it's how you're equipped to do it. So you see everyone running in a frenzy trying to be like someone else instead of just being them, being made for their moment. And I really believe, much like we talked about with PAC, it's how do we equip them to be entrepreneurs? Athletes are often the best salespeople. Athletes are often the best entrepreneurs. Obviously, I'm speaking very general, but there's a lot of qualities that you gain. And if you can leverage it, hey, if you got a good cheekbone and you're tall, bet, make the money. But you also have a soul to grow. You have thoughts. You have an education that you're about to get, you got for free. I mean, like, even in that's a blessing, even if it's not free. If you're on a partial scholarship, you have something that you can leverage, step into the marketplace and say, hey, I want to grow in this area. Stop making it about how you look at your Instagram followers. I want to grow. It gives you opportunity and leverage.
And it also makes you really equipped, right? Like, I feel like they're giving you so many resources and assets on top of, like you said, having a network, being put in the right places, and then on top of that, you have the money, you have the scholarship, you have everything set up for yourself. So even if you don't hit that 1% that makes it to the NFL, you have just been taken through a good resource plethora that could potentially help you when it comes down to that life after being an athlete, which is, I mean, like I said, a scary place to be for some people if you don't utilize your resources and you're not equipped for it. So that was one thing that turned me on to PAC, and as well as with Made Athlete, was like you're helping people with guidance that they don't get like in their previous years, if that makes sense. I feel like it's an additional resource and a mark that a lot of people are missing, and that's why when you leave, it's like, well, what else do I do? You lose your sense of direction. But you have to be ready for and be able to adjust to this new phase of life that you're about to step into. But it's kind of like, how do I do that when I've only known this one thing for my literal entire life? Like, if you're at that, even at a collegiate level, you're like the top athlete in the city, the state, potentially. So it's kind of like a lonely place to be because you've kind of just been in a competitive lifestyle your entire life. And when that leaves and that's no longer a part of your life, what do I do next, you know?
And then it also, I think, to speak to that, Chas, it's like when you're in those spaces where you are maybe at the top echelon, even when you're there, there's so much comparison. You're never quite there. And there's a part of that drives you to be better, but there's also a part of it that can also be a shadow side because you can't ever step into gratitude for where you are. You're always trying to do a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, it's a very dark place to be.
And we use that. Those are like buzzwords. And I feel like mental health is a beautiful thing that there's a lens on it. But I think that we can get real buzzwordy, you know, where it's like, oh, no, we got that taken care of now because we're talking about it more. But for athletes, it's often stuff that's happening internal. It's not externally being spoken. It's an internal struggle. And often it is comparison. These are young, these are babes, basically. They're little, they're kids. You know, like I thought I was so grown when I was 20 and 21. Like I was moving the needle. I'm a child. And it's not about trying to minimize anyone. It's just when you can step into the humility of like, I'm still learning and growing. My prefrontal cortex isn't even closed. Like I think that happens like late for men too. Mine wasn't until like 30. I was like, am I having full thoughts? It's like not me thinking thoroughly. But at that time, I was a wreck. I'm all over the place. And I really believe that NIL is kind of allowing athletes to project more, but I think that there will be people, and there are people that are trying to step into the space to change it a little bit more. And one of the things with, again, tying in entrepreneurship and thinking of a startup week, I mean, when I say I am start up, all caps startup. And, you know, you got to be, I think it's also a thing of not projecting. If there's ever a time where I'm actually growing as an entrepreneur. We had a conversation with the Geekdom crew before about becoming. And I think it's really, really important for athletes to see entrepreneurs or people that they maybe think they want to be like, or like, man, you're really doing stuff. You know, you can hear that so often. I think the humility or the foundation is I'm becoming. And I think it also gives an opportunity because we have to leverage this social media thing. Everyone's doing it. But you see a lot of social media now being leveraged from this founder's POV. And so I'm really trying to step into that where it's authentic, where it's not like, hey, I'm the guy who knows, give you the 5-point plan of how to navigate NIL as an athlete. It's to say, just like you, I'm the made athlete too. I'm becoming, I'm trying to step into my moment. I'm made for this moment. And hopefully that will impact and give influence for you and all the athletes around you. I'm really big on, I believe for the 99, not the one. So I really want to be more about the community that's really being kind of underserved. I mean, that word can be, you know, a big negative connotation, but it's this idea that we have such a focus on the glitz, glamour, the thousands of followers. But there's so many other athletes that have so much promise, gifting, and opportunity that they're stepping over to try to be like someone else. And so I really, you know, with Made Athlete, the big focus is to step into NIL and give space for athletes to step into their moment. So I had my first project, and speaking of entrepreneurship, this is kind of fun because people think you have to have it all put together, right? You got to have the deck, you need to have this, have some pre-funding, or, you know, be able to bootstrap and I literally, again, when you think of community, I want to build a community for these athletes, just like I've had a community that I've been able to step into where people have raised their hands and made opportunity for me when I wasn't there. I reached out to one of my buddies. He was at Lululemon while I was signed there. I mean, that was many years ago. We grown. I'm old. And so he moved over to On. It's a run company. It's been around for a while, but it's really taking off now. I mean, like they're growing like crazy. Got Zendaya on some stuff, and now everybody thinks that On is the best brand, and it's a great brand. But my buddy went over there, and we just had a call. And he was like, "Hey, let's just talk entrepreneurship, life, kids, all of the stuff." And it really was a seed planted to start talking about what's going on in the NIL space. And I was like, hey, this is kind of what I'm seeing, some of the issues. I really believe there is a way to give athletes the opportunity. And I always said, and this is exactly what I told him. I said, I think there's a way for them to trip over truth. And what I meant by that is the athletes want to make some money. Like they're like, hey, I can leverage my NIL. How can I do this? Who can I sign with? And people take advantage of stuff like that. They give you less. They project you more. People don't understand contracts. Most college athletes don't even know what perpetuity is. So they're like, I'll give my name, image, like, okay, whatever. They're just trying to get that $500. And I'm like, wait, I don't like that. You know? And so I was like, man, what would it look like? And this is just what I asked, without a deck, without reaching out to the C-suite and trying to figure out all of these. I said, what would it look like if we were to put on a project where we use the athletes as the talent, but also make this more of a project, like a 3-day event where we can kind of dive into a marketing plan, where we can dive into more of the emotional kind of balance of what NIL is and what it's not. What would it look like to pay them for that and then also give them the product, but then you have content to use for the brand? I mean, is that not a win-win? I'm like, why aren't people doing this? I'm like, well, doesn't that make sense? Like, they can step into now rooms with a marketing at On, really leaning in to glean because they're also being blessed with, you know, a level of stipend, some product. It's like, with that, can we clear a discovery budget for that? He was like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, guess we're gonna do this. So then I reached out to my alma mater, Texas A&M, and kind of had the same conversation with the head coach. And I went up to College Station to talk to him about it. And again, that's really was the seed planted to really start Made Athlete and start stepping into the NIL space and make some noise.
No, I love that because based off of like what you, again, like I said, there has been such a void in a lot of those things. And even when I went to PAC just for like the small event, the only thing I thought of was just like, damn, if I had this opportunity. And I mean, I'm a little older myself, but back when I was even in like the LFL, I had a sports agent, but it wasn't. I didn't know anything. I was just kind of trusting somebody to handle my earnings and my face and my business. And I didn't really have. If I would have had the guidance leading into things like that, I think I would have been able to navigate a little bit better. And even like going into entrepreneurship, I remember when you said the becoming. I think that was probably one of my most emotional talks I've ever had with somebody. and even we were being filmed. So if you guys want to see me cry, I highly recommend you check out this video. But it was one of those moments because we even though we may have been on different chapters, like when we were sitting at me, you, and Mike were sitting in this on this panel together, just talking and communicating. You saying the becoming portion of it was so, for me, it was very impactful because I was in that space of trying to sprint to run to get ahead when I wasn't necessarily, I don't want to say enjoying, but even just like accepting it for what it was because I was so afraid to lose. You know what I mean? So was never really like completely going through the process of understanding like even losses and even just feeling a certain way about certain things or putting myself in a position where it to be uncomfortable because I broke down in that talk that we had and it was it kind of put me in a place where it's like, man, I got to figure out what's going on with myself spiritually, emotionally, and things like that.
And then something happened, and then you kind of got there, and it's a beautiful thing of what community can give, and I think that's what entrepreneurship is. That's what going beyond wins and losses for athletes. It's like, how do we have these moments where we might hear something that might change everything, and that's where it is. Mm-hmm. So in transition, one of the things that we were talking about back there was that quote. If you have a body, you're an athlete, and I love that from Bill Bowerman, one of the founders of Nike, and I really think that transcends because so often we look at athlete as elite, and when I think of the human body, it is fearfully and wonderfully made. That's really where made athlete came from. Was a psalmist who spoke to it being fearfully and wonderfully made. That our works are the work of our body is like it's a miracle. Even the way that our body just adapts to so much that we put it through, even the stuff we eat. I mean, the body's fighting. Right. But I just truly believe that we all are athletes, and really the Yard Gym it's not going to be the 1%. It's going to be the everyday athlete that gets to step into that space. So how do you think that the Yard Gym can redefine this journey of being an athlete?
Well, I like this. This is the kickoff to our questions and answers. Mel, I'll answer this question first. I'm going to speak to it from a franchise perspective. So I personally think that going the franchise route, in my opinion, so especially if you're trying to open up some type of brick and mortar, it's the best way to start. If you want to end up opening up something else after that, after you open up the business, it's great, but at least you have an understanding and a blueprint of how to run a successful business because a franchise does essentially give you all those things. So when I was out of my athletic career, I wanted to open up a gym. I wanted to stay in fitness, but I had no idea what I was doing. So I figured the franchise route would be my best bet because it does give me the opportunity to learn and piggyback off of a growing business so that eventually when I do finish out my time with the franchise, I can have have options, right? I can take what I've learned and open up something for myself with my network and, with the establishment of understanding the marketing, the growth of the development of the community, all those additional things. Or I can continue to keep my place in the franchise and try to grow and foster into a bigger part of the bigger picture. But I personally think if in that transitional phase, especially for athletes, it kind of really just depends. I think the Yard, speaking from a franchise perspective, would be a great way to learn if that's where someone really has the passion for, if they have the passion for that. Because it does teach you quite a bit. Even though it may not essentially be yours per se, it is definitely a good stepping stone into the brick and mortar space for athletes.
I love that. And where I think we're about to do Q&A, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to see her because I can't see nothing out there. But I think she was over here. But one of the things we're going to show our videos, one, obviously the Yard Gym, which is the new franchise that's coming to San Antonio. But then I'll also show my first NIL project with On and Made Athlete. And took 4 athletes from Texas A&M, and I did exactly what the question was. Hey, can we create something where these athletes get paid, get product, but also feel like they leave knowing that they're made for this moment? And we want to do it on a high production. You don't have to clear that much budget. I won't pay myself. I want these athletes to know that regardless of what discipline they do, track and field, again, doesn't make much money. So you have these athletes comparing. I wanted to go straight back to where I came from and say, hey, let's step into this moment. Let me show you what a full production looks like. Let me welcome you into a C-suite. Let's talk to some of the marketing people. Let's write down as we're doing this, let's debrief and talk about what was this experience to you and how you can bring this into other experiences. And what came out of it was a beautiful piece. So I'm really excited to show you guys our videos.
Yes.
The aim for the Yard Gym moving forward is to continue to deliver the world's most balanced strength and conditioning workout.
It's a really exciting time for the brand. I could see that it was going to be more than a gym. We need that front of house experience that was missing from all the other franchises, that extra touch, that hello, welcome. The vision for Dan and I for the Yard is longevity, and the network and our clients are at the forefront of every decision we make.
The Yard Gym was founded in 2020 in New South Wales, Sydney, Australia. The vision for the Yard Gym is to continue to deliver the world's most balanced strength and conditioning workout, backed by the greatest lifestyle brand that the fitness industry has ever seen. We used to train in Mum and Dad's front yard, and we called it Garage of Terror. That's where the passion for training people started, and then I started the Yard, and that was inspired from Mum and Dad's backyard. Rig and Turf are our two sessions that run side by side, allowing our clients to pick and choose what they'd like to train every single day. Turf is our conditioning session, allowing you to focus on your conditioning and your cardiovascular health and fitness. Rig are our strength sessions, allowing you to complement your turf workouts, focusing on compound lifts, bodybuilding movements, and strength endurance. This will allow us to continue to build and deliver the world's most balanced strength and conditioning workout.
Husband and wife, founders of the Yard Gym, Dan and Tian Bova, join us now to tell us all about it. Good morning to you both.
The thing I love the most about the Yard Gym is that our programming is inclusive for literally everybody.
They always have the choice to either do a strength-based session or a conditioning-based session.
Yeah, now I feel like fitter and stronger than ever.
With every stride, there's more than just motion. There's a dream being chased. A voice from within, daring you to defy the odds. Because real champions don't wait for applause. They blaze trails, break barriers, defy norms. With every tick of the clock, every pulse in your veins, you're writing your legacy. More than a competitor, you're a powerhouse. A legend in the making. New rules might reshape the opportunities.
Athletes can now make big money off their name, image, and likeness.
But the game remains the same. Grit, dedication, determination. They're undefeated. Greatness is a part of us. True greatness is in all of us. This is your moment, and you were made for it.
All right, guys, so we're going to open this up to any questions that you guys may have for Melvin or myself about the Yard Gym, our journey, and main athlete, of course, and what Melvin has going on next for his venture. Yes. Yes, I'm so excited. Okay, so the cool thing about this and why it means so much to me is because I've always felt like San Antonio kind of gets the shorter end of the stick in Texas. You know what I mean? We don't get anything first. we get all the great food first, but when it comes down to all these cool new products, especially in fitness, Austin, Houston, Dallas always get first take on it, and San Antonio is always kind of like a little more delayed than anything. So what I'm so proud of is that this is actually, with it growing, and wait till you guys see it, it's so amazing. San Antonio will actually be the first founding city in the U.S. to have the yard. So we're opening up 4 locations. Currently have 2 that we've gotten our keys for, 2 leases. Equipment's been ordered. It's on the way. The first one will be in Castle Hills, if you guys are near the Elon Town Center, and then a secondary one, which is going to open up pretty much on the same day, will be on Jones and Broadway over here in Midtown, right next to NOLA.
Yeah, so Made Athlete won't really have a brick and mortar. It will really focus more regionally. So again, this was with Texas A&M, in conversations with UT to do another project with but really trying to focus my attention on where the network is, and just regionally here in Texas makes a lot of sense. Actually, per capita, we have the most universities than any other state. There's a ton here in Texas, and it's where I'm from and where I'm connected. So yeah, it'll be Texas focused, but won't be San Antonio specific.
Great presentation, guys. Thanks. Do you guys have a focus on for the NIL, like a focus in product type or focus in service type that you want to plug your athletes into, or is like pretty opportunistic, or are people coming after you for it, or are you really seeking out to plug these athletes in the right spot?
Right. I was just listening to a podcast that said no one's trying to drink your Kool-Aid. So you really have to be visible. You have to go out and seek and search it. I think what I've recognized, I went on a journey of trying to secure funding. And I learned a lot from that, because I got really good at pitching, but I recognized how much the economy matters, how risk adverse people can be, and how really bootstrapping things just makes more sense. When you can say, hey, I'm going here, come along with me, as opposed to I want to go there with your help, it just completely changes the game. So now having a video like this and working through this, it's actually put me in more rooms, because I said I'm going to go. And this is how I did it. It creates a little bit of that, like, oh, he ain't playing. Like, he's not sitting and waiting for someone's money and using his language and, his vibrato to try to launch something. He's going out there and doing it. But to answer that question specifically, product is really big. Like, if you look at specifically micro-influencing, which is what NIL is, that's how I'm going to continue to pitch it and get into more rooms. It's, hey, how do we grab someone that doesn't have the 100,000, 150,000 followers, that really doesn't have, there's not really a KPI you can put on it other than like brand lift or being seen. But often in most companies are looking for the micro-influencer who has 2,000 to 3,000 followers, that has real engagement, people that will actually go and try to support what they're doing. That is where most of brands' money is going towards right now. So it's kind of understanding marketing trends and then kind of plugging and inserting NIL and these opportunities with it. Another thing is run is huge right now, and I'm a runner sprinter. I still run and sprint coach, because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship, you always better have another bag you're tapping into, because it is never consistent. But with that, I'm really focusing on the niche of track and field and cross country, because it's just a really huge lens. Specifically, I mean, really everywhere, but in Austin, Texas specifically, there's a lot of opportunity. So it's more product based. So brands like On, Lululemon, Legends, Nike, smaller brands are the best brands to actually kind of tap into and say, hey, let's use some discovery budget to try to make some noise in this space where no one else is. Yeah.
Can you share the vision that you both see your businesses going into for the next coming years, and what that looks like for you both?
Chas?
Yeah. So, granted, like this is a franchise that I'm tapping into. I love the fact that it's so brand new, like it hasn't touched the U.S. So, I can see this product scaling fairly heavily, just because I do think that it is filling a void that I feel like has been in boutique fitness for a while. Like I said, with the aesthetics, the style, and things like that. Specifically for my business, I mean, I want to scale it to the best that I can. I've always liked to be a resource for people. So if there is a way that I can make this business successful based off my knowledge or like I said, the marketing aspect and the appeal that it has as a brand on its own. I would eventually love to scale it to the best that I can, obviously in San Antonio first, scale it to the best that I can, but potentially consult and help other franchise owners and help them, develop successful businesses themselves based off of my expertise and my success that I've had in the business. So within the next 5 years, I would like to have all studios open and running with maybe a couple extra that we potentially have some equity in based off our management and expertise, and then potentially become a resource within the company or even potential mentorship in business and in the franchise world for myself to be able to be a resource for other people.
I think the big focus for me right now is more projects. The more projects that I can get out there, the more I can leverage it. But I really want to be athlete-centric. And I think that where there are eyeballs, people come. And, I mean, it is what it is. And it's a conversation even with On that I had. It was like, where are we housing this? Like how do we get athletes into a space, whether that be digital or physical, to where we can throw more at this? And On is just one business across the board. There's many of them, so there's tons of opportunities. And I always hear this for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs drown, they don't starve. So you're constantly trying to get into everything and you're just trying to keep things alive that you actually drown. And so it's not about the opportunity, it's about just being really, really focused. Right now it's projects and building the community, because if I build the community, then brands will come. That's going to take a little bit of a longer time frame. I mean, if I just had, I keep saying bags, I need to find another thing for money. If I had some more yen,
I'm not that
it could really, it could change things. But I'm also, when it's missional and purpose filled, I'm okay with the time frame. I'm not rushing towards purpose. I'm walking in it. And so, yeah, projects, building digital community, and then from there, hopefully really starting to build out more of the, like you said, the not consulting, but giving more education, just being a presence of what it could be like to redefine what it means to be an athlete.
And that is all we have time for, ladies and gentlemen. Please put a round of applause for our panelists today. Please make sure you guys stick around. We have another panel coming up at 4 p.m., The Art of Innovation, Bridging Creativity, Design, and Technology. Thank you so much.
And if I could, I'd get you the moon and give it to you. And if death was coming for you, I'd give my life on you. 'Cause you are the reason why I'm still hanging.
Check and get ready for the next beautiful
Chasity.
event coming on here.
How is it going, everybody?
It's been going really good. This was so awesome to be able to connect with the community here for San Antonio Startup Week, to get to share our stories and talk about our businesses and the transitional points between being an athlete into the entrepreneur world.
Awesome. Tell me who you are and what you do.
So Chasity Morales, I am a former professional athlete with the LFL. I am actually also opening up a new venture called the Echard Gym based out of Australia here and hoping to expand throughout San Antonio.
Awesome. Your turn. Tell me who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Melvin Echard. I'm a run and sprint coach, but also founder of Made Athlete, which is as an NIL consultant.
How do you feel like it went talking to the community here and getting to talk about the things going on in your life?
No, I think it's really dope. I think that any time that we can bring entrepreneurs in the room, in the community of San Antonio, to kind of hear, glean, connect, I think it's just a blessing. So it's been a really good time.
Well, San Antonio Startup Week was blessed to have you guys here, and you guys did amazing, and I hope you're proud of yourselves, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Startup Week.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Woo! Woo!